Sling TV has something for everyone. It really just depends on what kind of mood you're in. But no matter what you're looking for, you can watch it with Sling. Sports, news, or today's hottest shows. Plus, you can explore thousands of movies and shows on demand. And getting Sling is easy. Sign up and start watching in just 5 minutes, stream on any device, and record up to 50 hours with included DVR space. Plus, you won't get locked into a long-term contract. Check out sling.com for special offers. Sling, the TV you love for a price you'll love. Try it today. Welcome to the Andy Staples Show presented by Sling. We have so much to talk about.
I blocked off 4 hours, Andy. Is that enough?
Listen, we may need it because we may just have to go through this USC Cal game that's going on right now. Auburn and Mississippi State are in overtime as we speak. I was going to wait until this game ended, but then it was like, we got so much going on. We're just going to have to get to it when we get to it because they might keep playing for a little while. Who knows? These guys may go to 9 overtime. So,
yeah.
All right. Where do we start with this? Chaos is happening. LSU beats Alabama in overtime. Notre Dame beats Clemson. We know who number one is because Tennessee whomped Georgia. SMU and Houston tried to break the scoreboard.
Scoreboard barrier.
What else happened? It is just
I blacked out while you were listing it all, and I can't remember if you forgot anything. Ohio State
played a clunker.
Played a terrible game against
Illinois lost. They're out of the lucky 13.
Illinois lost. Okay, why don't we just start from the top here? The game of the week.
Which one would that be?
That was a trick, man. You're supposed to know the answer to that question, not me.
I'm going to start in Baton Rouge, okay?
Because it happened most recently, and we did a YouTube video about Alabama and Tennessee. God dang. There's so much happening right now about Tennessee and Georgia. So you can go check that out, and a lot of people listening to this now already heard us do that spiel, so we'll put that later on. And it gives people a reason to stick around. So let's start in Baton Rouge. Brian Kelly can talk in whatever accent he wants now.
He can dance however he wants now.
He can have
doesn't matter.
Anybody's in his family.
His family got a lot bigger tonight.
As far as I'm concerned, that's the correct way to pronounce it. Talk about the Stones, man. The Stones.
Wow. And you were texting me as they're going for two.
I didn't know if it was good or not.
And I'm like, I don't know. I have no clue. Now, I will say, Jane Daniels scored so easily on that first play from overtime. I get feeling confident that he can run the ball in if something breaks down. Turned out nothing broke down. The play they ran to Mason Taylor was perfect. How about Mason Taylor? True freshman. Now, granted, dad is Jason Taylor. Mom is Zach Thomas's sister. So lots of good football genes in this guy.
I think you're guaranteed to be good at football when those are your numbers.
But I mean, unbelievable touchdown catch in the fourth quarter by him. And then
great play design too. You know what I was thinking about as they lined up for that 2-point conversion? I kept thinking about, remember that video that they released of Nick Saban breaking down Texas A&M's final play of the game?
Yes.
And how perfectly diagrammed Alabama had that play to make sure that I was like, Nick Saban's going to do it again. Like I thought, like there's no way that Alabama's going to.
That was essentially that play too, because that's what Texas A&M was trying to do because they had shut off everything else. They were pushing everything to that side.
Basically?
Everybody has that general concept.
The central design in their playbook, and it's like such a bold strategy to kind of go with the same design that failed earlier in the year, and it wasn't even close to failing this time. The guy was wide open, and he has a very good football family. You can't let that guy run wild. But I thought that I've such a hard way of processing when to go for two, because they say if you're the worst team, go for two. But LSU might not be the worst team, and they were also at home. I guess it doesn't matter. You're confident in your team. You send your team out there, and I'll never bag on a coach for betting on his guys.
Yeah, I think it's a gut thing, and you're feeling very confident in your offense. Mississippi State wins, by the way. So Auburn, almost an incredible comeback. They were down 21 at one point. Carnell Cadillac Williams, coaching debut. He did a hell of a job. They should not have been in this game this long. So
yeah,
that's pretty incredible. But congratulations to Mississippi State. You get the number one team in the country next week. Georgia's coming. But this is the LSU decision to go for two, I was fine with just because the way the game was going. I felt very confident in Jaden Daniels. And I texted you before the final Alabama drive in regulation where I said, there is no quarterback I am more confident in this situation than Bryce Young.
Yep.
And sure enough, he took them down. They kick a field goal. It was not the prettiest field goal, but they get it in there. And I just assumed Bryce is going to take him to victory in overtime. But when Daniels scored on the first play of LSU's overtime possession, you're like, oh, okay.
With ease.
Yes, they could not get him. They struggled to get him down all night. And this is what we talked about. Was it a mirage that their offense looked better against Florida and Ole Miss because Florida and Ole Miss's defenses aren't good? Or were they figuring things out while playing less challenging competition? And I think the answer is probably choice B.
Yeah. Who's the biggest winner of the day? Like, is Georgia just the biggest winner because they beat Tennessee at home and then they don't have to play Alabama now?
They probably don't. That's the next thing I want to talk about. Do we think LSU is going to win out? Arkansas and Texas A&M.
I think we do. Yeah.
We think they're going to win out. Okay. Because that's the thing. Are they going to, if they win out, they're playing Georgia for the SEC championship. Now, we did not include LSU in our Lucky 13 last week of the teams that we thought could make the playoff. But we had the caveat, if they beat Alabama and they're the presumptive SEC West champ,
they're back in. Yeah.
They're back in. So they're in. Illinois is out. They're in.
Oh, boy. Yeah, and like I don't even want to think about the idea of like if LSU slips up and then Alabama somehow sneaks their way into the SEC championship game and then beats Georgia, they're in. Well, so I guess technically speaking, Alabama's not out.
Alabama's got to go to Oxford and play an Ole Miss team coming off an open date.
Yeah.
It ain't a given that Alabama's going to win next week.
Well, it's like, listen, whatever we said about Brian Kelly, successful first year. You beat Alabama at home. I don't care what Alabama it is. You put yourself in a position where you're probably hugging on the top 5 of the second edition of the playoff rankings. You did what you were supposed to do in a year. And it makes me think that, hey, like you said, everybody always talks about fit. Winning is the best fit.
Yep.
It makes me think that he has a real shot there to win a national championship in the next 4 or 5 years. So
remember, Ari, LSU has to lose twice. For Alabama.
Oh, Alabama's out. Yeah. I thought it was one time.
Yeah. No, their second loss or their other loss is to Florida State. So that's not a conference loss. That doesn't count. And
yes, that's right.
So they have the head-to-head against Alabama. Well, I guess, because they need Alabama to beat Ole Miss. They don't need any sort of three-way tie situation.
Yeah. So the question that I guess we have to answer here is, what is your diagnosis for what's wrong with them this year?
With Alabama?
Yeah.
The lack dynamic receivers that can separate. I think we've seen that enough to know that that's a problem. And then I don't know that they cover all that well. Yeah. I think the pass rush isn't a problem. Their pass rush is very good, but I don't know that they cover that well.
Yeah, I mean, they got a great running back. Offensive lines, I thought kind of got beat up a little bit, to be honest. I thought LSU's defensive line was nasty.
Listen, Ali Gay and Ojulari have been good all year. Imagine if Mason Smith had been playing all year.
Yeah, no, I know.
That's the thing.
Didn't injure himself on the dumbest possible way. Not that he's dumb, that it's just a freak accident. Yeah, just awful.
And Harold Perkins is that dude.
He might be a top 5 player in the entire sport right now.
Yes. Like that's literally one of those. I'm going to ask Dane Brugler. Dane never likes it when I ask him about guys that aren't draft eligible. But I'm going to be like, where would Harold Perkins get drafted this year?
Yeah, wait, 6 years from now, you'll be asking him about high school seniors on the draft board. It always is scooting up year by year as the recruiting calendar scoots up. But, man, that guy's special. Yeah. And, listen, they got him in the late signing period. That guy was almost at A&M this year.
He was committed to A&M. They flipped him. So we will talk about Texas A&M much later in the show. Because we have too much to talk about.
But
with their flu game. But
I think we have to talk about each of the teams first, and then we have to go into like playoff scenarios because wins weekend. But let's just contextualize everything first.
Okay, so we've got LSU and Alabama. So LSU has an 11 a.m. local kickoff at Arkansas next week. Arkansas just lost to Liberty. That was Hugh Freeze essentially saying, "Hey Auburn, if you'd like to see my resume, here's another line for you there.
Yeah, here's a copy of it. Yeah, okay. So I think let's just go right to Tennessee, Georgia. We have to get into it because
let's do Notre Dame.
Okay,
Clemson
all right.
First.
Well, if you want me to start spitting dragon breath 15 minutes into this thing, then we'll do it.
I feel like you've earned it. I told you so. So Ari, the floor is yours.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I think I have to say it to you or the people listening. Everybody who got mad at me on Tuesday for saying that Clemson was basically a fraud and reminded me of 14 Florida State. Like the Clemson mentions on Tuesday were just flooding. Let me say,
they knew in their hearts of hearts.
Let me just say,
they were exactly like
Clemson fans. If you were giving me crap last week about the 2014 Florida State comparisons, let me tell you something. You're right. I was wrong.
Uh-oh.
Florida State didn't lose.
Yeah, you didn't have Dalvin
Cook. You're lucky to get that comparison.
Yeah.
Not even close to being as good as that team was. So, the thing about their offense was they had flashes where it looked good, but the symptoms of what we saw tonight of complete and utter incompetence, they couldn't move the football on Notre Dame, were there. Like you knew it was, they still had it in them. And even if you watch the live show, you'll tell me, Clemson's in trouble. I said before the game started, the line was weird. I think one of their best defenders was out of the game. But they just couldn't score. They couldn't move the football consistently. DJ got benched again and then brought back in. It's just not a very good football team this year. And it's a very good football team in comparison to 95% of the sport. They're good. They're Clemson. They win, but they're not elite this year. And you could see it early on in the season. And we thought we were going to get to a point where, hey, there's nobody who could beat them on the schedule, but it turned out that somebody could, and that team was Notre Dame. And you got to give Notre Dame credit because they were on the mat, and they beat the crap out of them. And if you watch the second quarter, too, it wasn't even you remember the one thing that we said on the show we were both wrong about, Andy? I can't think about a world where Notre Dame is moving the ball on Clemson at will on the ground and they can't throw it. It's like they ran the ball down their throats the entire second quarter.
I was so wrong about that. I was shocked.
So,
that's just shocked.
I don't know what, I don't like this, I told you so thing because I'm wrong so often. I shouldn't gloat when I'm right. But this is a show and
you've been playing the long game on this one though. I think you've earned it.
I don't have any, vested interest in it. It's just calling it as it is. And it is what it was. And now it opens up the door to a tremendous few months of podcasting because there isn't a team that's just taking up a spot. Now that there's a spot for the taking and a lot of teams that want that spot.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Is Clemson definitely out?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think they're definitely out.
Chaos
I don't know.
Happen.
They got their butt. Well, I was talking about blowout losses.
Right.
If we're going to say that Tennessee's out because they got blown out, Clemson got their butts kicked. This was 35-14 was I would say that Notre Dame blew out Clemson worse than Georgia blew out Tennessee. Could you get there with me on that?
I would agree with that. Yes.
So I actually believe that they are out.
So I'm with you. I think from a practical standpoint of if you get to where Clemson is in the mix for 4 or 5, the committee will pick somebody else because they don't want to put Clemson. They will not believe
if the
in
options
Clemson.
are Clemson, here's the thing. I think I'm pretty certain that Tennessee's probably going to be there at the end of the year as a one-loss team, right? So you have to think about blockers right now, and I'm going to write a column about this on Monday. But is Tennessee an Oregon blocker? Yes, because if you have to pick between those two, you're probably going to go with the team that beat Alabama and lost worse or lost in not a better way on the road
to Georgia. Yes.
And there was a true road game, right?
Right.
So, Tennessee's resume is just better as well. So if you have that blocker there, who's blocking Clemson? Because both of those teams probably block Clemson, right? If Oregon's a one-loss conference champion and their only losses to Georgia, that's a far more excusable thing.
A 12-1 Big 12 champ TCU should also block.
Probably, yes. And the thing about it is, if they would have lost to Notre Dame by 3 and it was raining and it was just one of those games, you could talk yourself back into, hey, they've got a good coach, a proven coach. They've got talent on the roster. Maybe this is the 4th best team. But the fact of the matter is that it is a a blowout loss against a team that lost some really bad games this year. And I know that going to Notre Dame in this environment probably isn't the easiest place to play, but that I would say that loss tonight was worse than Oregon and Tennessee's loss to Georgia.
I think that's fair. I also am not
Those
sure.
teams got their butts kicked, but they got their butts kicked by the best team in the country.
I'm also not sure Clemson finishes.
Yeah, they might lose again. I honestly
lose. If they could lose that game, well, if they could lose that game, they could lose to Louisville, they could lose to South Carolina, and they could lose to North Carolina.
Yeah, because it's like not even a conference game, so
they're not losing to Miami, but
they're still completely within their controlling their own destiny world to win the conference, and they could be a one-loss conference champ without a conference loss. But I don't think that that offense is going to put them in a position to absolutely 100% beat everybody left on their schedule. And if Notre Dame is a flawed team this year, there's no question. And Notre Dame just took it to them in every facet of the game, and weather is an excuse. So I think that they are done. They have had their time in the shine, their helmet's not getting them in. And you have Clemson that's absolutely out. You've got Alabama that's absolutely out. And you have a bunch of really good teams now that are in that mix for 3 and 4 with Ohio
Notre
State
Dame,
and Georgia still alive here.
Notre Dame has clearly gotten better as the season has gone on. Drew Pine has definitely gotten better since being forced into action after Tyler Buckner got hurt. Drew Pine was doing stuff with his legs that we've not seen at all this season.
Yeah.
Is Drew Pine going to save me $1,000 this year, Ari?
Yeah. Well, you got to be careful, buddy, because
PTR
if they keep getting too good, then you're going to give a USC another quality win. Now that's the thing. Did Ohio State just get a better quality win now because Notre Dame beat Clemson? Is Ohio State viewed differently? I don't think that stuff really.
I don't think people were already viewing Ohio State pretty well. So I don't.
No, I know, but you don't get that extra feather in your hat. You don't just change your mind. I think that the win for Notre Dame was it hurt Clemson more than it helps Notre Dame as a candidate. I don't know if Notre Dame's going to sneak back into the back half of the top 25 now, which would be incredible because they definitely are in our rankings.
Be like the Ascalon rankings. Got to put Notre Dame in there somewhere.
But yeah, I don't know. So the thing is that we have two definite teams that we don't even have to talk about when it comes to the playoff right now. Georgia and Ohio State. Those two are in, right? Michigan is still a part of the conversation.
Well, if Michigan beats Ohio State, they just flip.
Right. So Michigan probably should be 3, right? Who's going to be 3?
Okay, Georgia's going to be 1. Ohio State's going to be 2. I would put Michigan 3, TCU 4.
Yeah. So here's the thing that we're not considering is that if Ohio State and Michigan play a close game, the loser of that game might actually
get a chance,
better odds of getting in and better looks than Clemson would.
Well, right. 11-1 Michigan and 11-1 Tennessee, or 11-1 Ohio State and 11-1 Tennessee.
If Michigan goes on the road and loses to Ohio State by 3, they're still a more attractive candidate to me than Clemson would be. So they are so dumb. But you have teams that are still technically alive now, and we can make our list again. But there are 2 spots now instead of 1 that are kind of up for the taking, and we're going to get some new blood in here that we're not necessarily accustomed to seeing in the recent past. You've got Michigan that's still alive, obviously, playing Ohio State. TCU's still alive. Oregon's alive. USC's alive.
UCLA's alive.
LSU's alive
right now.
Is Ole Miss alive?
Ole Miss is not alive, not in control. They're alive, but not in control.
Yeah, because of the side of the conference they're in.
Yeah.
UCLA is still technically alive.
Yes, they're playing as we speak.
So there's a lot of teams that are alive in 2 spots instead of 1, which makes this whole discussion more fascinating. The thing that I would say now, Andy, is that I like Tennessee's chances of making it more now than I did directly after they lost. I wouldn't say that they were as dead.
Let's talk about that game.
Okay.
Because we need to give Georgia their flowers before we even talk about Tennessee making the playoff. Georgia was awesome. I was right that Georgia probably could score at will on Tennessee. I was completely wrong that Tennessee would be able to score at will on Georgia. Tennessee got shut down by Georgia's defense, which was awesome. And I was wrong about that. That was bad prediction by me.
Yeah. The thing about that game is, and there's no other way to really put it, is that you can be the best schemer in the world. I said you could get the guy from A Beautiful Mind to craft up these plays that you couldn't see. You could have the notebook from the coach of the water boy. If you're getting your ass kicked on both lines, you're not going to win the football game, and you're not going to have a very good chance of.
I will argue that the game plan that Georgia's defensive coaches, that Glenn Shubin and Will Muschamp and Kirby Smart put together, was pretty good, because it was different than what they've been doing. They came out with a different look for Tennessee than they'd given to some other teams, and Hendon Hooker could not handle the pressure. They tried to heat him up the whole game, and it succeeded. He was holding the ball before he'd catch it and throw it. This is where the Stars Matter part comes in. Their DBs can run with Tennessee's receivers.
I saw people saying that Keely Ringo couldn't run coming into this game.
Who would get that impression? Like,
I don't know, but I saw him run pretty good.
He runs pretty great.
Yeah.
No matter what.
So yeah, here's the thing that I have to say, and you have to let me say it, and people are going to predict it, but Tennessee was a fun story. Tennessee beat Alabama. I think we got more context in what that win means. You don't erase the gap between Georgia and you in 1 year. I don't care how great your coach is. I don't care how awesome your quarterback turned out to be. I don't care if Jalen Hyatt turned out to be the reincarnation of Devontae Smith. It takes a lot of time and a lot of program building to be able to stack your team up athlete for athlete and beat Georgia, especially on the road. And as you were watching that game, the one thing that was continually prevalent throughout the entire game was Georgia has dudes everywhere. Mm-hmm. Put it on my epitaph, dudes everywhere. And you just you can't fake your way through.
We got to make you a hat that says
but they do. They really do. And like, the fact is that when you say Stars Matter, it's not about individual players turning out to be really good. It is the wealth of how many they have on this team that makes it so demoralizing for anybody who doesn't. They keep coming and they keep coming and they keep coming, and they hit you and they hit you and you hit you, and you can't beat them. Who's the receiver that caught that pass that looked like Calvin Johnson in the back of the end zone? Former top 60 player, not in Georgia's game plan at all the last 2 years, comes in and makes an amazing catch. That's just
the fastest player on their team.
No, I know, but like, do you see how tall he got up there? He climbed the ladder, man.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, that guy is just a casual dude that Georgia brings off the bench. They bring him off the bench on the lines. They bring him off the bench in the skill position players, and they are just better than you. And it's palpable. You can sense it. You can feel it. So as we talk about stories next year at this point in time, next October, when another team turns out to be 8-0, and they're fun and they upset a really good team, I'm going to remind myself, if you rank number 19 in the 247 Sports Composite, the boogeyman will be waiting for you at the end. And the boogeyman is Georgia. The boogeyman is Alabama. The boogeyman is Ohio State. Eventually you will face a team that is built that way, and you will lose.
This is an interesting question, though. Who is the boogeyman now? Because I think the boogeyman torch got passed in Indianapolis last year. The one.
There are multiple boogeymen. They're boogeymen, but they're one boogeyman of the sport.
I realize that, but
Georgia's the boogeyman right now.
Right. Okay. That's what I was getting at. So,
but I'm saying, if you are a team that's really, really good, you've got skill position players, your coach is smart, you have a great offensive game plan, your quarterback's awesome. Eventually, whether it's in the regular season, if you play in the SEC, or in the playoff, you are going to play a team that has 19 first-round draft picks on it, and you are going to lose. So last week and the week before, when we were talking about Tennessee and whether or not they were a national championship contender, I got my way around into saying, hey, if Tennessee beats Georgia, they actually could do it, and I would be in shambles. They were going to break my brain. And I need to remind myself to not get weak in the moment, to double down and say it will not happen. It cannot happen, and it won't. It just won't. You just can't. It's a physical game when depth is important. And eventually you are going to play a team that can just keep sending dudes and dudes and dudes, because there are dudes everywhere, and they're going to beat you. And that's the fact of the matter is. And if you don't think that Stars Matter and you want to send me JJ Watt's recruiting profile, you don't get the point. It's about a wealth of them. It's about when your guy gets injured, you bring another one off the bench. When your guy gets tired, you bring another one off the bench. You play another team, They don't have those. They're not fresh. Their injury can ruin their season. You cannot win. That said, Tennessee had a remarkable season.
Their season is still ongoing.
No, I know, but I'm saying we're going to put the national championship discussion to bed. Hopefully,
barring absolute disaster, the worst thing that can happen to Tennessee is they play in the Sugar Bowl.
And if you would have given Tennessee this exact result 4 months ago,
they'd have been like, hell yeah,
give it to me. So now is the hard part for Josh Heupel. Now it is, look what we could do in one season. Can we build a team where our team has dudes everywhere? And that's what it's going to be NIL. They got Nico coming in. You got to get guys everywhere. And when I say dudes everywhere, I don't mean go look at the 247 Sport composite.
No, you need those Alabama graphics where they had, here's the starting offense in 2012 and the NFL team that all 11 people play for. And here's the starting defense. And here's the NFL team that all 11 people play for.
It's not 3 top 100 players in a class. It's 14.
Yeah.
It's not. And then over the course of a 4-year period, that's almost 25 more top 100 players on your team, which is almost a quarter or more than a quarter of your entire class. You know how you know you've made it? When favorite
Ari
team
messes up math involving the top 100 when he's talking about your team.
Here's when you know you've made it.
Yes. Okay.
When your team is playing Alabama, and every single time a person on the other team makes a play, you say, gosh, darn it, we were the final 2 with that guy. Or we almost had that guy. Or the time that your guy makes a play, oh, man, he was almost going to Georgia. Or that guy. Because when Alabama and Georgia play, all they do is see each other's recruiting boards. When Ohio State plays Alabama, all you do is hear the 20 guys that Ohio State was recruiting that they didn't get. That is the company that you need to be in to win a national championship.
That's exactly right. We will be right back on this week's edition of Dudes Everywhere.
Dudes Everywhere.
As we talk about clunkers and half clunkers. We'll be right back. Sling TV has something for everyone. All your favorite shows on all your favorite channels, all right at your fingertips. What you want to watch is up to you. It really just depends on what kind of mood you're in. If you're looking for sports, Sling's got you covered with pro and college football and basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, golf, racing, and so much more. Sling also has reality TV, so you can keep up with the latest gossip with today's hottest shows on channels like TLC, Bravo, MTV, and more. And don't forget about news. Get up to date with today's most trusted sources like MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News. Feeling adventurous? Explore thousands of movies and shows on demand. So what kind of mood are you in? No matter the answer, Sling has what you need. And getting Sling is easy. Sign up and start watching in just 5 minutes. You can stream on any device and record up to 50 hours with your included DVR space. And the best part is you can pause or customize your subscription at any time. Check out sling.com for special offers. Sling, the TV you love for a price you'll love. Try it today. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you've heard me talk about Roback. You know I was wearing my green Roback Performance hoodie when I caught a pass during the Alabama-Texas A&M game at Bryant-Denny Stadium because Roback makes you elite. I mean, it has to be that. That has to be the reason that I made a one-handed catch in an SEC football game. But it doesn't just have to be me. It could be you too. Roback's performance polos, performance hoodies, performance joggers, everyday shorts. They are the athleisure that makes you feel like you can do anything. And by the way, it's not just stuff to wear when you're lounging around. Right now, if you're watching the video stream, I am wearing my blue herringbone Roback Performance Polo. This thing looks great anywhere. And look, you're walking around, you see somebody else rocking that dog logo, you give them a little nod, you're like, oh yeah, you, sir, or madam, are also elite. So go to roback.com for a generous 20% off for all new customers through the end of this week using the code Andy. That's RHOBACK.com with the code Andy, 20% off polos, Q-zips, hoodies, shorts, you name it. Roback.com, RHOBACK.com, and the code is Andy. Welcome back. So, update on the USC game, and Ari and I are continuing bet about whether USC will make the playoff in Lincoln Riley's first 3 years. It is 20-7 USC over Cal at halftime. Cal is wearing some beautiful uniforms, but I do not think they're going to win this game. I'm going to need
not a big
UCLA or Notre Dame
myself.
Oh, I'm a fan of these. These are sweet. I realize they're very close to Pitt uniforms, but I really like Pitt's uniforms too. So
Yeah, Pitt has amazing uniforms. Everybody believes that.
This is true. Pitt is it. All right. Let's
the
talk
real
clunkers.
boogeyman.
Exactly. An unranked Pitt, as you just texted me, is the real boogeyman.
Yeah, I don't want to take that for myself. Somebody posted that in the live chat, and I laughed.
Oh, very nice. Well, we'll have to find that. We got a lot of comments in the live chat. Keep it up, guys. We've got to talk about clunkers because you pointed this out on the Picks show that we recorded Thursday afternoon. You said the weather's going to be weird in Evanston. It is going to be a problem for Ohio State. It's going to be a problem for Northwestern too, but it's going to make those teams closer together. So, all right, what does that mean? What it means? They didn't look really good at all. I'm screaming at my TV. Well, I didn't have them on a full TV. I had them on a secondary screen. I'm screaming.
They never got up to the big TV at any point?
They did for a little bit. But I was screaming at whatever screen they were on, just run the ball and you'll win.
They couldn't.
I know.
So so to me, it's like a lot of Ohio State fans in my mentions, because I was pointing out all the same things that they were pointing out during the game, were upset. And they're like, are you seeing the wind? And I saw the wind. There was a 30-mile-per-hour wind, right? And they were showing Noah Ruggles, the field goal kicker, trying to attempt field goals in the warm-up. And he was hitting these ones from 30 yards, and it looked like it would have been like they would go through by 15, 20 yards. And then the wind catches it and it just drops like in the end zone. So the passing conditions clearly weren't up to speed with what was ideal for
it was, whether you could even throw or not.
Yes. Basically. So like, even if that's the case, you're playing against a team that hasn't won a game in America this year. Now they beat an American team. If you want to call Nebraska an American team, they did. But they are a very bad team this year. And Ohio State wants to win a national championship, and it can't move the ball on the ground against Northwestern. So I don't know what you think of that game, but I don't necessarily believe that I feel good about this in any way. And when you look at the way that Michigan turned it on, people were like, yeah, well, they were losing to Rutgers at halftime. Joke's on you. They also stink. Or what. That is a problem, because it is a symptom of what happened to them last year, Andy. And that is that they got out-toughed and they got knocked around by Michigan physically. And Ohio State's a very gifted passing offense, and their defense under Jim Knowles is much improved if they can figure out how to properly use the defensive line rotations. They've got a really good defense. But if they play Georgia and they can't run the football ever, they're going to have a problem.
Yeah, they're in big trouble. And if CJ Stroud can't handle pressure. Now, CJ Stroud ran the ball better today than I think we've seen him run it before. But that was out of sheer necessity.
Yeah, I know. I mean, if you would have told me that he would have more rushing yards than passing yards today, I would have spit out my drink but he did. 76 yards passing, 10 of 26 for a 2.9 yard average against Northwestern. I don't know if they were playing in the movie Twisters, the set of Twister, that?
Yeah.
Were they playing football there?
Ow.
Maybe they were. I would have, if you would have said, if Ohio State was playing Northwestern on the set of Twister, would he have more than 76 yards passing? I would have been like, yeah. All he would have to do is do a shovel pass one time to Mayan Williams and watch him run for 60 yards up the middle of the defense. It was a bad game. And the most thing about Ohio State, and I've said this on the show before, and I want to know if you agree, but they seem to be disinterested at times. And if you watch the game, they look up into the sky. They got their arms on their hips. No one's enthusiastic. No one's trying to make a play.
It's and you're playing so many teams in a row.
But how many times can you do this before it's an
near
issue?
Their level? It's always an issue if you expect to be the best at the end of the year. Like, you need to be challenged.
But you also need to have a mindset that you want to crush the bones of your opponent, no matter who they are, and no matter what time it is, no matter where the game is located, and no matter what the crowd size is. You have to kick ass when you're out there. You only play 12 games a year. And I understand that Georgia had a clunker against Mizzou. It happens. I feel like it happens to Ohio State all the time, and not just this year, all the time.
No, it's definitely going back in their history. They have these games. I mean, we know about the Iowa loss in 2017, the Purdue loss in 2018, games that they had no business losing, and especially
and some of those games they got out-schemed and had some personnel issues that exacerbated the issue.
Exacerbated.
Keep trying. Exacerbated.
Nope.
Exacerbated.
Nope.
I can't pronounce it. Exacerbated.
Nope. One more time.
I know how to. I say a word. Exacerbated.
Nope.
Exacerbated.
Spell it.
I'm gonna Google it.
Write it down. Yeah. Right. Okay. Google it and then say it like it's written. Come on.
Exacerbate. That's what I've been saying. I can't say that word.
It's funny because now the next time I try to say it, I'm going to say it wrong because you messed my head up.
Exacerbate.
Exacerbated.
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 It's something baited. I don't know what it is.
Dudes everywhere.
Dudes everywhere. Baited. But what was I even saying?
I don't know.
I don't even remember what I was saying.
No, you were talking about the situation gets exacerbated when they keep doing this over and over again, and they don't.
Yeah.
They don't. They don't take things serious because that's how you get, especially when your schedule's kind of backloaded like theirs is.
Yeah, I'll say to you, if you're an Ohio State fan and you're listening to the show, my message to you is you've got two choices. One, you can go off into the week feeling like it was the wind, act like it wasn't a problem, or you can acknowledge that game was not just the wind. It's up to you what kind of fan you want to be. Personally, I'm going to keep it real. I always do. That game was not the wind. It played a part in it. Sure. They played like crap. And you play like crap too often, you will lose a game. And Ohio State, over the course of the last 10 years plus, with very good teams similarly built to this one, have lost games as a result of playing that way.
Right. And look, yes, it was windy. You have 5 NFL offensive linemen, and you're playing the worst team in your league. You should be able to physically dominate.
You should have 400 yards of offense of just running the ball.
Yeah, you should have never had to throw like Bill Belichick did against the Bills in Monday Night Football last year when the wind was blowing so hard and Mac Jones attempted 3 passes. Like that should have been your game plan and should have been easy for you.
Let me ask you this. Same conditions, same Ohio State attitude, same stadium, same time, same everything. How many teams in a Power 5 conference would Ohio State have lost to today?
Oh, a lot.
I mean, think about it in those terms.
Yeah.
It's bad. It was bad football.
So snap out of it. Speaking of snapping out of it, Michigan was down at half against Rutgers. Piscataway was rocking. I mean, it was Jersey. It looked like the set of Jersey Shore. It looked like the club.
It was those
LED
it was
lights.
Tony Soprano. Have you seen that cheering meme?
Exactly.
Italians cheering. Yeah, I mean it was it got away from him real quickly.
Had me reaching for the gabagool.
38 nothing score point differential in the second half. And that's kind of, that's a clunker, but the monster woke up.
But that's how you do a clunker. You clunk for a while, and then you're like,
and then,
okay, we're better.
We're better, and we're just going to kill you now.
Yeah.
And, I don't know what one. Michigan is a very good football team that plays tough. Blake Corum is an absolute savage. And this game is setting up very similarly to the game that happened last year, which is Michigan played a tough, hard-nosed brand of football. They ran the ball first. They didn't have a dynamic passing game. Ohio State came in, finesse, throwing the ball all over the place. Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson catching passes on SportsCenter's top 10 plays. You think you're going to throw for 500 yards, and then Michigan just kicks the shit out of you. So, I don't know if they learned their lesson from last year, but it is very similar. I see a lot of people on Twitter saying, Michigan's pass defense gives up yards and they can't throw the ball. It's like, did Cade McNamara have to make one play in that entire game last year to win? No, they just ran the ball down their throat.
That's exactly right.
It's very similar to last year. And now this one's at home, and they might have a different attitude, which will help. Ohio State is more talented than them. They've got better players, but Michigan's getting closer, and they play harder.
Oh, no, 22-24 with maybe the best assessment of the Big Ten East I've ever seen. Harbaugh designed Michigan to beat Ohio State. They built Ohio State to drop 50 on Michigan State.
I mean, that's
pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the way that Ohio State's recruited, they just don't have very many weaknesses in the talent they're bringing in. So, it's a very weird situation because it's like, oh, you hire a new defensive coordinator to give your team a personality. That personality is supposed to be grit and being able to, out tough your opponent, but I don't know if you can instill that. Like, I don't know how to instill that. Was it harder workouts? Is it longer sessions on the ropes there? I mean, what do you do?
It's weird because it's very hard with blue chip guys to de-recruit the blue chip guy and then make them understand that they've got to work harder. That there'll be games where they also have to have outworked the other team and not just out-talented. That was for the longest time Nick Saban's superpower, is getting those guys to understand, hey, if we don't treat this week like we treated last week, then it's going to go badly for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Kirby Smart's doing a great job with Georgia. Now, they had the Missouri game. I get it. But for the most part, they show up. Like, they don't have that many clunkers.
I would rank Michigan ahead of Ohio State if I were in the playoff committee.
I think they should too. There are things that concern me about not just them not being able to run the ball, not just them giving up over 200 rushing yards to Northwestern.
A team that can't even throw it. They weren't even
right.
There's no
mystery to it.
of them throwing it.
Yeah, you know what they're going to do. And I realize they have an NFL left tackle, but that's one guy. So I said this last week though about Stroud under pressure. It worries me. He does not seem to operate like you just watched Jaden Daniels and Bryce Young play. Both those guys are very good under pressure. You watch Hendon Hooker have a lot of trouble with pressure. You watch Stetson Bennett not have as much trouble with pressure. In fact, there was one play, I think it was one of the touchdowns, where he it looked like he was going to be sacked and he got loose and got out. And so that can change everything for an offense. So
yep.
I am probably more confident in Michigan than I am in Ohio State right now too. I think so. Maybe we should just revise those. Right? We go Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Ohio State 3,
TCU 4. That's probably how I would do it.
All right, let's talk TCU, because if you just look at the final score, 34-24 looks like a fairly comfortable win against Texas Tech. That was not an easy win at all. Texas Tech had them against the ropes. They were getting after Max Duggan. Our guy, Dane Brugler, our draft guy, loves Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher for Texas Tech, number 19. And before this game, I wasn't entirely sure how I felt about his love for him. After this game, I'm like, yep, that checks out. That tracks.
Yep.
Because he was just terrorizing Max Duggan. But TCU hung in. They kept scoring. They played some very opportunistic defense. They got some fourth down stops that they then cashed in for touchdowns, and they're still undefeated. And what they've done,
21 straight points in the fourth quarter on your home field.
Yep. Again, get down, come back. Maybe that's just this team's personality. I realize the committee loves game control and, do you win? Are you winning throughout the game? I understand why you would find that important, but sometimes a team just is the way it is. And this team gets down and they come back. I'm very curious to see them play Texas, which tends to take leads and then give them up.
Blows them.
Yeah.
As they almost blew a 31-10 lead to Kansas State.
Exactly.
Credit to Texas for kicking their butts for the most part.
Yeah,
that's going to be a banger next weekend.
Yeah, Bijan Robinson saw the Hendon Hooker French's mustard deal and was like, no, hell no. I am the condiment king of NIL. But let's talk TCU, because I think if we look at what TCU's done. Now, the shine is a little off that Oklahoma State win because of what has happened to Oklahoma State in the state of Kansas the past 2 weeks. But the Kansas State win still feels pretty good. We saw them beat Oklahoma, and Oklahoma is better with Dylan Gabriel, but they lost to Baylor today. So the Big 12 is full of teams that are pretty good and can beat you on a given day.
How do you value that too? It's just like, let's just take a Big 10 strength of schedule, right? Let's just use Michigan's for an example. Michigan's going to go through the season, and maybe this is a bad example because they'll have to beat Ohio State at the end of the year. But would you rather have 2 marquee wins and a bunch of rubbish around? I said rubbish. I don't know why I said that. I was going to say, I was
going to say British on us.
I was going to say a curse word, and then I was told not to say them as much. Or would you take it? No, my dad actually.
Oh, how about that?
I said I sound less professional when I use
When does it
words.
stop being a bleeping coincidence?
Yeah. In private, it's okay, but I think he's got a point. I got to be more professional. We do
a podcast where I eat like $30 worth of Taco Bell if I lose a bet. I don't know how professional we really are.
Yeah. We're just having a good time. Would you take a schedule full? Like, what's harder, getting 2 marquee wins against very good teams or much above average teams, or would you rather have tough outs every week?
The one that can keep winning with tough outs every week is probably the more impressive team.
Because that's what TCU is. Now, at the end of the road, if they beat Texas next week, they're going to get credit for that. Okay.
They will. The advanced rankings love Texas.
Yeah. And beating, listen, they don't have a marquee win, but if you go look at their month of October, Oklahoma, at Kansas, and that was during the time where Kansas was really that was the game of the week.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State, which at the time was number 8. Things have kind of fallen off there, but still a tough win at home. And then beating Kansas State. That's all in a 4-week period. That is a very hard month.
Bowl teams will TCU have beaten?
TCU, I don't know is Tarleton?
Tarleton's not going to make a bowl. Colorado's not going to make a bowl, but SMU is. Oklahoma is. Kansas is. Oklahoma State is. Kansas State is. West Virginia won't. Texas Tech might. Texas will. Baylor will. Iowa State might. Will.
Iowa State's got 4 wins right now.
I'm going to say will. I don't know. It's hard.
They got Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and TCU left.
Every game they play is so close, but they might. So we're talking 8 bowl teams, wins against 8 bowl teams, and it would be 9 because you'd have to beat another one in the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah. So but the thing is it's a shame that TCU won't get the respect on its name that it deserves. But I do think that they deserve respect for getting through this schedule. For better or worse, do you believe? Here's the thing: do you believe in your heart that Texas or TCU could beat Georgia? How many times out of they can't, right? So
I don't think so.
We know this, and we have to understand how to put this into context as we describe who should be the 4 team. It's hard because you want to respect them. They've earned it. They're going to win their conference probably. They have a really tough schedule for what they're doing. But really, how many teams in the entire country could actually beat Georgia? I asked this. Chris Vanini was at my house watching the games with me today. And I said, it was one of my deranged would you rathers, and I'll ask it to you.
Okay.
If you had to put one team, a person breaks into your house. He holds you hostage and he says, Georgia's playing a game on an indoor field in a non-conference situation or in a playoff situation. You have to pick one team to beat Georgia. If Georgia wins, I'm going to kill you.
Yep.
What team do you put on the field against Georgia?
The Buffalo Bills.
You survive. That's it.
It's exactly right.
And then the cards fall and I don't have a would you rather anymore. But honestly, it's my version.
If I had to pick a college football team this year, probably Ohio State. And I still think I'm probably getting killed.
Yes, you are.
I'd have a chance because if they play their best game, they have a chance.
That's my roundabout way of doing the truth serum thing.
Yeah.
Because I want you. So take Ohio State out of the equation.
Okay.
Then
I guess Alabama.
That's
but
it.
I don't think they'd win.
But that's it. So I'm saying you already know who the best teams are, and Alabama's not even in the picture anymore.
And
I don't
Alabama
think
have a chance against Georgia. Yeah.
There's nobody left that can beat. I'm talking if TCU played Georgia, they might lose by 28. They're a very good football team, and they might be in the playoff, but they are not at all equipped to beat a team like that. So as we have playoff discourse for the next month, 6 weeks before you and I are in Viva Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah. We're doing live shows in Vegas, by the way, guys.
Yeah, you can come out in Vegas, meet us.
Championship Saturday and on the Sunday when the playoff field is announced, we will be at the Sportsbook at Mandalay Bay.
Well, I might be at the Mandalay Bay buffet, but
exactly.
We'll be in the Mandalay Bay.
Thanks to our friends at BetMGM. Yes, we will be there. So,
but like that's the hardest part about this is like we have to try to rank teams and find 2 spots for teams that legitimately have a 0% chance to win when they play Georgia.
Here we go. I bet Missouri could do it on a positive note on the
is that who you would take with your life on the line? Missouri?
Yeah.
They wouldn't be the worst choice.
They may wind up coming the closest this year.
Yeah. So it's really hard.
Well, we say that you and I were positive that Georgia was going to beat Alabama in the SEC championship game last year, and they didn't. So they do play the games for a reason.
You wouldn't even take LSU over Alabama. You just take Bama.
I know. It's crazy. I'm like a person who sets the line in that way. All right, we got a lot of other results to get through. We talked about TCU. We need to go elsewhere in the Big 12. When we come back, we are going to talk to you about how to talk to your children about a bowl-eligible Kansas. That's right, baby. The goalposts are in the lake. The new goalposts are already up. There is no GoFundMe. The Jayhawks are going bowling. We'll talk about it when we come back. Reserve Bar is your online source for premium and luxury spirits, wine, and champagne. And now Reserve Bar offers same-day delivery. Reserve Bar has a vast lineup of rare and hard-to-find bottles, premium brands, celebrity spirits, and limited releases that you just won't find at your local store. And no one does spirits gifting better than Reserve Bar. Looking for an elevated gift? ReserveBar.com has you covered, and you can have that gift delivered right to the door, and you can get it engraved, which is perfect for birthdays, weddings, anniversaries, you name it. If you're getting into home bartending, they've got all the barware you need at Reserve Bar. Reserve Bar also has a great feature called Cocktail Lounge. It's a treasure trove of cocktail recipes, bartending tips, and interviews with master distillers, celebrities, and more. Need something for a party tonight? ReserveBar.com offers same-day delivery straight to your door. Did you forget that birthday gift? Reserve Bar to the rescue with same-day delivery. Visit ReserveBar.com today and use the promo code Andy to save $10 off your first purchase of $75 or more on spirits, wine, or pre-made cocktails, but only when you use our special offer at ReserveBar.com with the code Andy. That's ReserveBar.com, code Andy for $10 off your purchase of $75 or more. The offer expires on December 31st, 2022. When everyone is going one way, it pays to go the other way. Zig when they zag. Movement has been doing everything different since day one, creating watches with refreshingly clean designs, top-tier materials, and unbeatable prices. You can stand out with Movement's watches, eyewear, and more during their Black Friday seasonal sale with a discount that you can't miss. I love Movement. I've got my Raptor watch. It's outstanding. It looks like it costs hundreds of dollars more than it costs, and people always looking, where'd you get that? Well, I got it from Movement. It's timeless timekeeping with a fresh look. Movement's designs come in countless styles for every occasion. You can shop with confidence with a 24-month warranty, free shipping, and free returns on orders over $50. And watches are just the beginning. Movement's line of eyewear and jewelry is designed to set you apart for all the right reasons. Movement Eye Scroll eyewear will filter out the most intense blue light rays so you can look your best while doing your best work. So be the good gifter with Movement. During their Black Friday seasonal sale, get a special discount of 25% off site-wide with the code BF25 just for the holidays. Join the movement today at MVMT.com. That's MVMT.com, and the code is BF25. Welcome back. Kansas is bowl eligible. Ari, we were wondering when this would happen. It happens with a victory against Oklahoma State, which should never go into the state of Kansas again after the past 2 weeks.
Kansas is a good team, man. They're a good team.
Jason Bean, baby.
Yeah. Gotta give them the respect they deserve, man. They're a good football team. And they didn't just win. They rocked
their butts.
They kicked butts. So, and I'm excited to see Kansas has got a really, really big game at home this time against Texas in a few weeks. I'm excited to watch. And they're a sneaky good football team, and they deserve all the credit in the world. And, I think that We spent a lot of time in the early part of the year having bits about Kansas and being undefeated and, rank them cowards and all the funny things that we used to say. But like at a certain point, you got to turn the page and just say, you know what? They're a really good football team, or a pretty good football team, really good for their standard. And they had a tough, stretch of 3 losses in a row against TCU, Oklahoma, and Baylor, which was probably the toughest stretch of their schedule. But they come out of it with a win against Oklahoma State, and they still have a chance to do something really special the next few weeks. So I'm very, very much excited to see it. And I do believe that we should be giving them, like you say, give them their flowers because they deserve it. What a good year they've had.
Kansas had 351 rushing yards against Oklahoma State. Golly, what a butt kicking. Oklahoma State, again, we're a bad at math podcast, so I'm actually using the calculator on my phone for this. Oklahoma State was outscored 85-16 the last 2 weeks in the state of Kansas.
I could have added that one up.
They beat Texas, and then that happened. And golly, but it was getting frustrating because Kansas was stuck at 5 wins, and you really wanted to make sure they got that bowl game. And listen, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if Lance Leipold's going to go somewhere else, going to get hired by somebody else. But just enjoy this.
Yeah.
Enjoy this. And because what this means is it doesn't have to be that bad. And I realize Mark Mangino won really big at Kansas, but I think people looked at the last 3 coaching staffs and said, there's no way. It's not possible here. But it is possible. So we will see what happens with that after. But you got Texas Tech, you got Texas. This would be the 3rd win against Texas since 2016, right? If they win this one?
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
And that's not a gimme on the road?
Well, no, that's at home. They beat Texas.
I meant for Texas.
Oh, yeah. No, it's absolutely not a gimme.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost to these guys at home last year. So,
yep.
And then the Sunflower State Showdown is going to be great. It's going to be the best one of those in a long, long time.
Yep. All those things.
So, congratulations to Kansas. Now you can start dreaming of what bowl you're going to go to. You're just playing for placement now, and that's
they should send them to the Bahamas because they deserve it.
Oh my God, that would be the Big 12 does not have a deal with the Bahamas Bowl.
No, they give it to them. Just throw them out there.
Brett Yormark, Big 12 commissioner, you're making magic anyway. You did this great TV deal. Just call ESPN and be like, listen, we're going to make this happen. We will give the MAC one of our bowl spots, and you put Kansas in the Bahamas Bowl.
Yeah, just put the MAC in Detroit and just be done with it. It's
exactly. Well, the MAC's already in Detroit.
No, I know. Put them back.
Well, give the MAC like the Alamo Bowl.
Yeah, that's still fun.
Why?
No, I said that's still fun.
It is. It's great fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Central Michigan or whoever goes to the Toledo goes to the Alamo Bowl, and Kansas goes to the Bahamas. Who loses?
Or Vegas.
Who says no?
Yes, yeah. BSE says Bahamas or Vegas.
I like it.
Because the fans deserve it. Go over to, what's that casino called? Atlantis?
Exactly. I mean, no, that's where everybody is. Like,
yeah.
Everybody stays at Atlantis. So
yeah, and it's like in the movie Vegas Vacation, when a man can walk through a casino with an extra $10 in his pocket, pay a little extra for steak, and that's a good day for that man. Let those Kansas fans experience it.
Oh, yes. I don't think the Cal Bears are going to help me win my bet with you. So
no, I think that the door is wide open for here's the thing I said last week, and like I said, I was supposed to write about it last week. I'm going to write about it this week. Oregon seems to be the best team in the Pac-12 right now, but they have the worst completed resume if you give them all win outs.
Right, because they played Georgia instead of playing like Cincinnati the first week.
So like USC, I think if they beat Oregon and they beat UCLA on the way to the Pac-12 championship would be more attractive at the end of the year to the committee than Oregon would be if they went out. So because they're in that weird conundrum of blocked by Tennessee now, and that makes it even more compelling than it was a week ago. So I don't know. The Clemson loss today makes Notre Dame a better win for USC when they play.
They win, yes.
And the door is open for them again if they keep winning. So I don't know if they will. I think that they might lose to UCLA. I think they might lose to Oregon. But if they get those 2 wins and then they somehow beat Notre Dame on top of all that, and they somehow do that, then USC is an attractive playoff candidate at the end of the road where there aren't 4 teams that are shoo-ins right now. And that should be scary for you and your wallet. I'm going to buy something really stupid with your money. I don't know what it's going to be yet.
I think you should buy like one steak, like one. I'm sure in Vegas there's like $1,000 steak. Yeah, you should buy one steak,
or maybe I'll use it. We'll go get 2 $500 steaks, so at least you can enjoy part of it.
Oh, I would eat both of them
because we are going to be together in person if and when that happens.
That's true, but well, yeah, we would if USC makes it this year, we will be
sitting
in
next
Vegas
to each
together. Exactly. So yeah, no, I mean, I would what I would do is buy 2 $500 steaks and eat them both in front of you while you eat a salad.
Okay,
that's what you should do to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to think of it. It's going to be humiliating for you, though.
I'm sure it will be. I have no doubt. All right, let's talk Big Ten. One other thing that happened. Well, no, before we leave the Big 12, Baylor, Oklahoma. I don't have no idea how this game ended up on ESPN Plus.
USC just scored again, just so you know.
Yeah, I know. But okay. It was a banger, Baylor and Oklahoma. Now,
yeah, you're right about that.
An Oklahoma fan who wants your team to play some defense. But Baylor's found itself. They crushed Texas Tech in Lubbock last week. They go to Norman and win this week. Now, it's probably too late, but now they're a really tough out, which makes things interesting.
Yeah, it's a shame they lost to West Virginia on the road that night because they would have only had one Big 12 loss and they'd be firmly in the mix to win the Big 12 this year. And they have Kansas State, TCU, and Texas left in their schedule too. So that's a tough final month of the season.
But if you're TCU, how scared are you to go to Waco in a couple weeks?
I think that's probably their most likely game they're going to lose.
It's interesting because they play Texas next week. So this is the most talented team they're going to play is next week. But the scariest game is probably the week after.
They got Gary Patterson wearing burnt orange on the other sideline, though.
Mm-hmm.
Terrifying.
That they do. That they do. So
do you think TCU is going to go undefeated?
I think it's very hard. It's sort of the same thing I said about Clemson last week where, I didn't think Notre Dame was going to beat them, but I thought somebody of Notre Dame, Louisville, I don't think Miami would, but South Carolina or North Carolina, one of those would, because they just weren't good enough to beat all of them in a row, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And TCU, they've lived somewhat dangerously. Now, again, if you keep doing this, I'm just going to go, that's your personality. I get it. But I look at having
eventually
Texas
the magic runs out, though.
Exactly. The ball doesn't bounce your way one time. Yep. So that's where I'm at on TCU. And it's the Baylor game that I kind of have circled for them. Now, Texas will get up to play them. And Texas has really good players. But I think TCU's been so consistently good, and they will be way up for that game.
Yep.
But Baylor going to Waco, and they'll punch you in the mouth, and their style of play is tough to deal with in the Big 12. So, yeah, that's the one I would circle for TCU. Let's go to the Big 10. Michigan State had to suspend 8 players after the incident in the tunnel at Michigan, and of course, deservedly so, given what happened. But would you have had them beating Illinois after that?
You can say what you want about Mel Tucker.
He gets them up.
He wins games that make you scratch your head a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know, Illinois is a good football team. I'm not trying to take anything away, but beating Wisconsin after that 4-game losing streak that they were on where they were just getting blown off the field was kind of a weird win. And then, after what happened to them last week to come out and beat Illinois on the road, they do seem to find a way to not completely let the wheels fall off. So that's a good thing if you're a Michigan State fan. And, I think that Illinois is still very much alive to get to Indy. I haven't given up on that hope yet.
Oh, I think they're very much, because their 2 losses in the Big Ten are to East teams.
And they're going to have a 3rd loss to an East team soon.
Right.
Because they still play Michigan. So I don't know.
They've beaten everybody they're supposed to beat, and none of those teams are all that good.
Yep. So, great year for Brett Bielema. I guess Michigan State needed something to feel good about, and they got it. So as I wear Spartan green.
Well, how about Jim Leonhard, by the way? Do we think he's got the full-time job? That's what we said when Paul Chryst was fired. We said this looks like they're giving him enough runway to get the full-time job. I feel like
so it's after the Illinois game. So he's 3-1.
He's 3-1. They lost to Michigan State.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. They beat
Purdue, Maryland. And then
Maryland. They beat Northwestern.
And they beat Northwestern.
Purdue and Maryland.
Yeah. So they got to play Iowa.
At Iowa next week. Big game. At Nebraska, at home in Minnesota. They could finish 3-0. And he could go 6-1 after the team started 2-3. So, I mean, I think that they knew what they were going to do before this went out, to have the confirmation of, hey, this is going to be a good decision, work out for you, makes you feel good if you're a Wisconsin fan.
Yeah. And so that one feels like it's going to be tied up neat and clean. We don't know what's going to happen at Auburn. That job opened this week. Hugh Freeze did give himself another resume line going to Arkansas.
Sure did.
And they were up 21-3. Arkansas scores 2 touchdowns. They get the 2-point conversion.
Don't forget the safety.
Oh, that's right. It was 21-5 at one point. Yeah. So, but Arkansas scores 2 touchdowns. They get the 2-point on one of them. They do not get the 2-point on the other one. They end up losing by 2. I mean, this is one of those, if you're Auburn, you have to look at this, and you were looking at Hugh Freeze anyway, and you have to decide that, do you want to deal with the baggage or not? But if you decide you can deal with the baggage, does he go to the top of the list?
Yeah.
Like, he's number 1 on your list. If you decided you can deal with the baggage, he's number 1 on your list.
I don't know if you'll find a lot of people that wouldn't be confident that he would win there.
Oh,
he's a very good football coach. He's proven
it feels perfect for him.
Yes. And he could probably it's like, I don't like comic book movies, but it's like that movie Dark Knight. Or no, it was another Batman movie, but the villain that goes, oh, that guy with the thing on his face.
Bane.
Yeah. It will be very painful for you. That whatever that guy is. Didn't he say some of you
you adopted the darkness?
Yeah, you adopted.
I was born to it, brother.
I was born to it. Yeah, and then that I think that people who are listening to the podcast can't see me doing this with my hand, and that's a really big shame for you. But he was in the darkness. This is like he was made for Auburn. It's a matter of not Auburn wants to admit that he was made for them. That's the problem.
Justin, yeah. Wow, Andy and Ari say Baylor has a better chance of beating TCU than Texas does. Texas will be favored against TCU more than likely. We know Texas will be favored against TCU.
Go back and look at every single Texas game that they've been favored in over the past 3 years, and you'll understand that does not matter.
Exactly. I will say that there's a guy at Texas who knows TCU's roster pretty well, but I don't know.
We'll see.
So again, back to Hugh Freeze, who went to Fayetteville and won. They're 8-1 with a 1-point loss to Wake Forest, the only blemish on Liberty's record. They've been through a bunch of quarterbacks this year. Listen, I was always saying I don't think that Auburn will do it because of the baggage. But you know what? I'm starting to turn on that. I'm starting to say, you know what? If you want to just win unapologetically. And
they do. Let's cut the crap here. Of course they do.
Let's go.
Everybody just wants to win unapologetically. Everybody is one bad loss away from saying, I don't care who it is or what they've done. They could have murdered somebody. Bring them in. We're not talking about any of that stuff. We're talking about football.
Still the greatest press conference ever. Speaking of former Arkansas coaches, when Tom Jurich brought Bobby Petrino back to Louisville, he'd gotten fired at Arkansas, then he'd been at Western Kentucky, and then he goes back to Louisville. And the press conference, because normally the AD's like, he's a fine molder of young men. Tom Jurich is like, yeah, we know it. You know what happened. We know what happened. Here's Bobby Petrino. Talk about football.
Yeah, go talk about football. Yeah, and hopefully we'll win.
Yeah, it's going to be something.
Fans are seasoned enough to know that they can separate their heroes from what they do.
Yeah, that's true. And the game day signs will always be incredible. So,
yeah.
So Ari, now we get to a game. I already did the math on this one since we're a bad at math podcast. This game featured 1,352 yards and 65 first downs.
Is this the SMU game?
I speak, of course, of SMU beating Houston 77-63.
Man, I wonder what was the total on that. before the game started?
That is a great question. You vamp and I'll look it up.
I mean, I can. These eyes are never gonna see another level one, and I wanna love you.
See, at least I knew the words.
I don't know the words.
Let's see.
Somebody asked the overhit. Yeah,
the number
I think
was
it did.
The number was 65.5. So SMU
So
hit
they
the number
doubled
by
it.
itself.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that. It's hilarious.
It's unbelievable. It was one of those where there was the meme of, explaining, oh, Houston's offense is great. They have 35 points and they haven't punted in the first half. Surely it's a blowout, right? It was a blowout, but they were losing.
How did they score 77 points and their quarterback threw for 9 touchdowns? Tanner Mordecai. 9 big ones.
Unbelievable.
379 yards and 9 touchdowns.
Imagine if he was still at Oklahoma
and
Dylan Gabriel had gone out.
10.2 yards per reception or yards per catch.
Attempt. No,
per attempt.
Yeah.
No, not per attempt. Per completion.
Per attempt. We're a bad at math podcast here.
28 completions for 28 out of 37 completions for 379 yards.
That's 10.2 yards per attempt. Exacerbate.
It is
370 divided by.
That's what that number's always been.
Yeah. Yes. Yards per completion is a silly stat because if you go 1 for 30 with a 99-yard pass, your yards per completion average is 99 yards, but you had a terrible game.
Oh man, I never knew that, dude. I'm not supposed to be admitting that.
Nope.
I thought that it was a 10 point.
You're exacerbating the problem.
I'm exacerbating the problem. He had 10.2 yards per attempt and 9 touchdowns, which means he almost had as many touchdowns as yards per attempt.
It is truly amazing. I got to find the score of that Houston SMU game right after SMU got the death penalty. Because I think they almost put up 100. Yeah, they scored 95 on that team.
It kind of seemed like they could have scored 100. I mean, they had 56 at halftime.
They won that game 95-21 and had 1,021 total yards.
That's pretty good.
That was in 1989. So this is essentially SMU getting its revenge for 1989 for Andre Ware.
Feels good. Feels good to be back, baby. We're back home. Dallas, stand up.
That's right. All right. Another guy I want to talk about. Well, let's talk Heisman a little bit because Bo Nix had another big game against Colorado. I believe he's produced 18 touchdowns in the past 3 games, whether it's running or throwing. Meanwhile, Drake May basically drug North Carolina to a win against Virginia. These are 2 guys I think should probably end up in New York. I do feel like if people look at Drake May's stats a little closer, they're going to be stunned.
Yeah, you're really big on the Drake May bandwagon this week. You were kind of getting there last week, and now you fully arrived. The train is in the station.
Well, he's not doing this with. We talked about this on the bonus show, where some guys just have so much better talent around them than the teams.
Josh Downs is probably a top 5 receiver in college.
Josh Downs is really good.
Yeah,
but Josh Downs is their best receiving threat, and they've played games without him this year.
He had 15 receptions for 166 yards.
He was incredible against Virginia.
He could not be covered. No, but your point stands. And the thing about Drake May is that people don't realize this because if you look at him, he looks like a pocket passer. That dude runs
he's their leading
ass
rusher.
off.
Yeah, he's North Carolina's leading rusher. So he's completing 71.2% of his passes. He's thrown for 2,964 yards and 31 touchdowns. He now leads the nation in touchdowns because he was tied with C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud didn't throw any, right? They were all rushing touchdowns for Ohio State.
Yeah, C.J. Stroud had 0 touchdowns.
Yeah, so he's leading the nation in touchdowns. And it's not like they're doing this to pad his stats. He's doing this because he has to because their defense is bad.
Yeah, out of necessity. And he has 500 yards rushing-ish, 500-ish yards rushing. So Yeah, I mean, I think I could get behind that. The thing that stinks about the trophy is that if they lose and when they lose, probably.
Well, think about how many people have actually watched a North Carolina game this year. You and I have. We text each other during North Carolina games.
I love watching North Carolina.
We're always amazed by the defense, but it's not. They're not games that are featured. Like this game against Virginia was kind of buried in a pretty solid slate of noon Eastern games.
Well, I mean, also too, if you go look at their last 5 games, it's Virginia, Pitt, Duke, Miami, Virginia Tech.
Right. They're not the best.
It's not the best matchups. So we'll get a Clemson game maybe.
Yeah,
they're playing Wake Forest next week. What are we talking about? That game was bonkers last year.
Take that over because
we did this last year, and I said I'm not doing it, and I think I lost a bet on it.
Yeah, well,
I think because it was 77 or something, and I'm like,
North Carolina's defense is certainly worse than it was last year. I don't know that Wake Forest offense is better than it was last year, but North Carolina's offense is better than it was last year.
Yeah.
So now Bo Nix. I want to talk about him because this is another guy that we should be talking about for New York, if nothing else. Obviously, Oregon's still in the mix for a playoff berth. Oregon still very much in the mix for the Pac-12 title, probably the favorite for the Pac-12 title. He is completing 73.3% of his passes. He's thrown for 22 TDs. He's thrown for 2,495 yards. And he's also run for, 457 yards, 6.6 yards a carry. That's including sacks in there. So he's running the ball really well. And he's got 13 TDs on the ground. So Bo Nix is kicking ass. And good for him after everything he went through at Auburn.
Okay, so now who do we actually think is going to win it?
I don't know.
Because these are all like fun now, but they're not going to.
Hendon Hooker was the guy that was the popular choice. It's going to be hard after.
If Ohio State beats Michigan, CJ Stroud's going to win the trophy.
Probably CJ Stroud. If Michigan beats Ohio State and Blake Corum runs for 180 yards.
Blake Corum is also a worthy candidate.
Exactly. If USC wins the Pac-12.
Yeah. You know how weighted this stuff is? It's so weighted to the last 2 weeks of the season, this award.
Yeah.
It's like you can rack up all these stats in the world and be fun.
Well, think about it. If Caleb Williams has big games against UCLA, Notre Dame, and in the Pac-12 championship game, there's a really good shot Caleb Williams either wins the award or at least ends up in New York.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's still kind of like so early, even though it's November. It seems early or late, but it's not. It's so early in the trophy because we're all like waiting to see which player is going to be on a good team still,
Yeah.
It's like if Oregon goes out and wins the Pac-12, Bo Nix becomes a more attractive candidate to me.
Yep. So we could say Jordan Travis for Heisman. Nobody would know what that means, but Florida State kicked the crap out of Miami. Everybody was watching Alabama LSU. I had it on one of my my tertiary, or I don't even know what the fourth screen would be called, but Miami looked horrendous.
Yeah,
they needed a running clock in this game. Miami is so bad.
Yeah.
Mario Cristobal, I know everybody's saying it's the John Ruiz guy and it's NIL and that's how they're getting commitments from these guys. I almost think they're just going, look, you're starting next year.
Yeah,
come here.
Yeah. Oregon fans are just like, Mario can't coach. You'll see, and it's happening now. And I'm gonna give it some time. But
I'm gonna let them get their roster together. But
it's not. Early returns aren't great, Bob.
Meanwhile, what I keep telling you about Mike Norvell, they keep playing better. They keep getting better. Give Mike Norvell till next year. I think they're going to be pretty good.
They're getting their butts kicked in Florida. That's all. It's hard. It's hard to really buy in.
Florida State, you're talking about the recruiting trip.
Yes.
Yeah. That's going to be the tricky part.
Florida has 18 commitments, I think, from blue chip prospects in the state of Florida this year. Or 14, sorry.
Yeah. Billy Napier's gone really hard in state. And that's the problem if you're Mike Norvell. If Billy Napier and Mario Cristobal are getting all the dudes, you're going to have a problem.
So, tell me more about how hard his teams are playing for him. It doesn't matter.
Hey, whatever. They're playing better, and if they get better, they're still getting better recruiting classes than they were getting. Now, it'd be nice if they had Travis Hunter, but Deion out-recruited him for him. So, There you go. Now, one more game. And a few weeks ago, a game like this would have been the first thing we talked about because, holy crap, it's still happening. Texas A&M had their flu game today. Connor Wegman couldn't start. Haynes King had to start. They were out. Like the list of players who were out for Texas A&M was shocking.
I sent it to you. Hold on. Let me go find it. I want to read it out loud. Say something.
Now,
okay, found it.
This is illness and injury, but go ahead.
Out for Texas A&M today. Starting left guard, backup left guard, starting center, starting quarterback, starting receiver, backup receiver, starting defensive end, backup defensive end, starting defensive tackle, starting linebacker, starting cornerback, backup cornerback, starting nickel, backup nickel, starting safety.
And that thing was nip and tuck for a half with Florida.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I honestly, like, I was looking at the live lines. Like, Florida was basically even to win, like, late in the second quarter of that game. And I was just, like, waiting for the wheels to fall off. And they finally did. It's like, I don't even know how to analyze it. It's just another bad break in a season where nothing's going right. But it's like, I don't know. I'm not going to pile on Jimbo if his entire team was out with the flu.
I don't think you can. I
mean, what kind of flu was this, though?
Well, apparently it's a flu that ripped through the entire campus.
Oh.
That's just you're wondering, like, is this a work? But I mean,
I've never seen an entire team get knocked out by the flu before. It's just a weird.
Well, actually, who had this last? Florida State had this last year against NC State.
Oh,
very similar situation. So it happens. But yeah, they've lost 5 in a row. I don't know. We've said everything there is to say about Texas A&M right now. It's year 5. It's supposed to be better, but it's not. I do want to. Nathan Cole did remind me before we close the show. Nathan Cole in the chat says, "Hey, don't forget to give Iowa their props for putting up points."
It's 2 weeks in a row. They've got to figure it out.
Ari, Spencer Petras, 13 of 23, 192 yards, 8.3 average per attempt. Very nice. Anything over 8's pretty good. Iowa put up some points. Iowa moved the ball.
Crazy times, man.
We are living through
all
the
it's
fun
doing
is
giving Kirk Ferentz enough excuse to stick with it because it improved at the tail end of the next year. Like, if you're an Iowa fan, you gotta be rooting for it to burn. Because if it shows signs of life, then you're giving him something to say in news conferences when he says, "Why did you retain your coordinator?"
You're saying the Iowa fans are just begging for them to be shut out by Nebraska on Black Friday.
What do you think? You think that it's like, oh, you know how coaches are. You know how Kirk Ferentz has handled this at the podium when asked if he keeps his son in charge. He'll be like, "Did you see the second half of the year? We have it all figured out."
You see that Purdue game?
See that Purdue game?
Great.
That's what happens. You gotta. Disaster sometimes is the only way to get out of it.
Poor Iowa fans.
Sometimes out is through. Sometimes out is in.
No, out is in.
Sometimes the way out is in.
I think it's the Seals say the only way out is through. I think that's what it is.
Sometimes the way out is in. We're going to stick with it.
Exacerbate
my terrible analogy.
We'll talk to you Tuesday.